professional triathlete Haley Chura, and today I have the great pleasure of talking to Taryn Spates. Many of you know Taryn from her weekly blog post, her Instagram TV show, and her impressive race results. Taryn is also a published author. Her book, 35 by 35, A Runner's Quest, came out in 2015, and she's currently hard at work on book number 2. I would consider myself a wannabe avid reader. I know it's good for me, but sometimes I have a hard time getting myself to sit down, put my phone and my computer away, and just read. I do feel like now is a good time to spend more time reading, so I asked Taryn for a few book recommendations. And as a bonus, she also shared some insight on her writing process. Enjoy my conversation with Taryn Spates. Hi, Taryn. I'm so excited that you're here to join me today. Can you start us off with a little introduction? Tell us who you are and maybe give us a little brief background on your athletic career and your professional career.
So my name is Taryn Spates, and I am a writer and producer living in Los Angeles, California. I spent the last, really like 8 years or so devoting my time to triathlon and being a parent and being a writer. So I'm not as much in the film world these days, but that is definitely my background in production. And right now I wrote one book, and I'm in the midst of writing my second book. I'm a blogger, and I also have a weekly TV show on Instagram TV called Taryn's Triathlon Time. A little weekly roundup comes out every Friday, and I blog every Tuesday. So yeah, these days I'm training a lot. I'm actually dealing for the first time with a bit of some injuries this year, which is somewhat entertaining. Just figuring out different things to do in this coronavirus world that we're living in. But taking it day by day and reading and writing and working out.
Well, in addition to all those amazing paths, I guess, that you're following, I know you as an athlete, of course, but also as an author, like you mentioned, and an avid reader. So the world is pretty crazy right now. And what do you think about reading as a quarantine activity?
I think it's fantastic always to read. As a writer, it's honestly just a job requirement to read a lot. So I read primarily nonfiction, but I also read fiction as well. And what I try to do is in the morning, I read a nonfiction book for about a half an hour, 40 minutes. And then before I go to bed at night, I try to have a fiction book because I feel like tends to just it's a little more fun. It's a little bit more relaxed. And then especially in the times like we are right now, where I try to stay away from watching the news as long as I can, but I do tune in the evening, at least for like an hour or so. So it's a nice way to just kind of wind down. But I think, especially reading like nonfiction books, reading any sort of good writing is so inspiring to me. So if I could find a good one, then I just, I go through it, and I think it's very helpful to kind of take us away a little bit and kind of, if it sets a goal for someone right now in this time especially, then it's awesome.
So I asked you to recommend 3 books, and I did say preferably by female authors, so that we should all consider reading right now. Are you ready to reveal your picks?
Oh, I'm ready, Haley.
All right. What's the first one?
Okay. The first one is by someone in the triathlon world, a fantastic writer I think we're all fans of. I certainly am. Susan Lacke's Running Outside the Comfort Zone. You see this?
All right.
Okay.
Yes,
so
we can see it.
This is Susan's second book. Her first book was fantastic too, but this one I recommend for right now because it covers a year of her life where she did all these different random races. And I mean, when I say random, I mean very random races. Like running up the Red Bull, like 400 meters to the Comrades Marathon. And Susan is such a fantastic writer and storyteller, but she is so hilarious that literally you laugh out loud when you read this. So that book really, I think for our audience, just encapsulates so much because it's funny, it's well written, it's so many different races that can kind of think outside the comfort zone than just triathlon, that it'll get your mind going and brainstorming, and it's a really fun read. Definitely recommend that one.
Great. Let's move on to number 2. Okay,
number 2 is Unbound. This is by Steph Jagger, and I just finished this. And this is a book that she's actually a skier, so she's not a triathlete, But it's a story of this incredible quest that she went on to ski 4 million vertical feet around the world in a year. So I can't even wrap my head around that, honestly. I'm not a skier, but it was so, again, very well written. And the stories that she went on and the traveling that she did and what she did to prepare for it as far as an athlete went and just her life going into it was so interesting. And of course, along the way, she learns all kinds of things. And really, it's a true transformation of what she goes through. But as a woman and also as an athlete and an amazing writer and a student of the world. So I really, really enjoyed that one. That was one where I thought it would take me a week to read, and I just ripped through it in 3 or 4 days. So really good.
As someone who lives in a ski town but does not ski, I hear a lot about oh, you skied how many meters, how many feet. So I have a little perspective, and I know that 4 million is a huge number. So I might need to pick that one up. I haven't read it. Number 3.
Okay, number 3 is Good to Go by Christine Aschwanden. Am I going to say that right? I'm not sure. I know that you and Alyssa interviewed her last year, I believe, on the IronWomen podcast, and I was so excited about that because I had actually already read the book by then. It's one of those where I picked it up as soon as it came out, and she is a journalist, but also has a science background. So the whole book is about basically the best ways, quote unquote, to recover, and she covers the gamut of everything you could think of, to infrared, saunas, to obviously drinking beer, to just resting, to the nitrogen of the cold, frozen stuff. And it was just so interesting in how she went through it. And it's not very biased. I mean, she really has a whole bunch of different perspectives on it. And she interviews a lot of different scientists and from different ways. So it makes you think about it. But what I picked that one for right now is because most of us can't really get to where we were. We can't even swim, which for me as a non-real swimmer, that's not my strong suit. I love it for recovery and I can't swim right now. So reading that book, she gives multiple ways of different ways to recover. And really what it comes down to kind of is rest is the most important thing, and sleep. And that's something we can all do right now, wherever we are. So that's a book that just lots of food for thought. And again, very well written.
Science to support what we're doing right now. That is what we need.
Yes.
You did allude that there might be a 4th pick. Is there a 4th pick?
It's really, really hard for me to hold this back. But this is, yes, there's a 4th pick, Haley. Hope you don't mind.
I will give you a bonus.
Okay. Let Your Mind Run by Deena Kastor. Let me tell you. So real quick little fun story. First of all, this is a fantastic autobiography. Deena Kastor, of course, is just the queen of running in America. And she actually grew up close to my hometown. So my brother and her, she's older than I am, but my brother and her in high school, they competed at rival high schools. So she was Deena Drozen back then. So her name, I've been following her forever. And so when she finally came out with that book, it was, again, such a well-written story of where she came from in her biography, but also incredible training tips. And also it kind of ran the gamut of when she was a kid all the way through her pro career. And now that she is, an amateur, again, an age grouper, and she's still crushing it. So a very well-written book, so fun, so interesting. And if you're a hardcore runner, just geek out. So I recommend that one as well.
What a cool personal connection. I love that. So you yourself, you are a published author. Do you have advice for someone who might want to start writing in some capacity right now, but doesn't really know where to start?
Yes. So I would say the best thing you can do is just start writing. And literally pen to paper, just write down thoughts wherever you are at all times. Always keep, a notebook around you, or early. One of my things that I do early in the morning every single day is I write a page in my journal, and it's nothing that I even read ever again. It's just thoughts. It's just getting stuff down, and it's a wonderful way to just kind of get things going, get the juices flowing. But also, if you have an idea, just kind of write stuff out. If you have any sort of character, just sort of write it out, and don't stress that you need to sit down and write for 3 or 4 hours every day, but maybe make it every day for 20 minutes, either if it's in the morning or when you come home from nowadays the grocery store, because we're all at home all the time. Just some sort of schedule, I think, is wonderful. One thing I've done, so I've been blogging now for quite a few years, and consistently every Tuesday now for a little over 2 years. And it's interesting how when you get in those patterns that even if I have no idea what I'm going to write about, I know that I'm going to write something on Tuesday, I publish something on Tuesday. And it's interesting that you just sort of program that in your mind and something that just comes up. And if you just sit down and just do it, all kinds of things can happen. It's never or not always good. I think that's the thing too. We need to be forgiving, but write stuff out because you never know. You could write one sentence out of 87 and it's good, like awesome. And you take that and you move it to something else. So it's so much like training as an athlete. It's just practice, practice, practice.
It does sound like training as an athlete with the, 20 minutes. That's all it takes, but it adds up if you're consistent.
Exactly.
So what is the best way to get your book, 35 by 35? That's our bonus fifth pick, or any of the other four that you recommended right now?
Yes. So, Haley, just to make sure a little visual, 35 by 35 A Runner's Quest. This actually, you can contact me anyway, and I will send out a signed copy, which is fantastic. Or you can get it on Amazon that's probably the quickest and easiest way, as a paperback, and also I do have it as a Kindle, so if that's a little bit easier. Those are plenty of options, And as my mom says, because I do think I've grown a bit as a writer since I published that, I hope, but it's a fun, easy read, as my mom says. So there you go.
Moms give the best recommendations. So I have one bonus question. So this chat was indirectly sponsored by Smashfest Queen Apparel and Team SFQ. Can you tell us what you're wearing right now?
Oh, well, this is my I think it was like 2017 awesome t-shirt that came out. And how I use this is sort of my ceremonious travel shirt. So I always wear this shirt when I'm going to races, like if it's like the Thursday before an Ironman or all of that. So it's sort of the beginning. It's very ritualistic for me. One of my all-time faves. And I thought for this special day that I would break it up for you, Haley, and all of our wonderful viewers.
Well, I appreciate it. I appreciate the fashion. I appreciate the book recommendations. You've inspired me to think about this as training, where I can just do 20 minutes, 30 minutes of reading or writing, and it can add up to a lot over, the course of a couple months. So thank you, Taryn, and I hope we can check in with you again soon.
Thank you, Haley. This is awesome.
Okay, so I've actually already read Susan Lacke's Running Outside the Comfort Zone and Christie Aschwanden's Good to Go, and I do agree with Taryn that they are definitely worth the read. My local bookstore is doing home delivery right now, so after I got off the call with Taryn, I did see if I could order Unbound by Steph Jagger and Let Your Mind Run by Deena Kastor, and it was a success. And as a bonus third book, I also ordered 35 by 35 by our very own Taryn Spates. So I'm coming away from this chat with 3 books I can't wait to read and a new appreciation for one of my teammates. Thanks again for watching, and I hope you got something out of our conversation as well. Happy training and maybe happy reading to all of you.